A lot of people say they're dating, but what they're actually doing is meeting up, hooking up, and hoping feelings sort themselves out later. When the character issues show up over time, people feel blindsided, even though they never really slowed down long enough to observe the person. Patience is huge. In many traditions, patience is tied to wisdom and self-control. Even in the Bible, patience is described as a fruit of the Spirit in Epistle to the Galatians. The idea is that patience allows you to see clearly over time instead of rushing into emotional or physical attachment. The difference between dating and hookup culture. Dating, in the traditional sense, getting to know someone intentionally, observing their character over time, asking questions about values and life goals. Physical intimacy usually comes later. Hookup culture. Physical intimacy first, emotional connection later, if it happens. Character evaluation happens after attachment. The problem is, once people become emotionally and physically attached, they're more likely to ignore red flags. Why patience protects people. Waiting and observing helps reveal patterns, how they treat others, whether their words match their actions, how they handle frustration, their views on commitment and responsibility. Time exposes things that charm can hide at first. When people skip the process of dating and move straight into attachment, they often discover a person's character after they're already emotionally invested. That's when people say things like, "I didn't see the signs," or "they changed." But often the signs were there, just not given enough time to surface. Observation before attachment, meaning observe habits, observe patience, observe how they handle responsibility, observe consistency before deeper emotional or physical involvement. A lot of the social media relationship space right now is built around extreme positions because extreme views get attention and followers. Balanced advice rarely goes viral. Many influencers fall into one of these approaches. Transactional mindset, relationships as leverage. Some influencers teach women to treat relationships like a strategy for financial gain or power. Examples people often associate with this mindset include influencers who promote the psychology, the philosophy about men providing financially. The core message is often prioritize money and lifestyle. Use strategy to get resources. Emotional connection is secondary. Some women follow this because they've been hurt before, they want security, they feel men historically benefited more from relationships. But the downside is it can turn relationships into a power game instead of a partnership. Anti-relationship, anti-marriage mindset. Others go the opposite direction and argue women should avoid relationships altogether or view men very negatively. Men are largely harmful or unnecessary. Women should focus on independence. Marriage and relationships are risky or oppressive. Again, some women resonate with this because of personal experiences or social trends, but this approach can also dehumanize men. Spiritual, mystical coaching. Some influencers mix relationship advice with spiritual ideas. For example, people who blend spiritually with social commentary. The issue here is that the advice often comes from personal beliefs rather than evidence-based psychology or counseling training. The real problem with influencer advice, most of these influencers are not licensed counselors, not trained psychologists, not relationship researchers. They are content creators, and controversy brings views. A lot of the messaging becomes simplified, emotional, polarizing, because that spreads faster online. Instead of teaching people to manipulate or avoid each other, focus on discernment. Questions that reveal character could include things like values. What do you believe loyalty means? How do you define respect in a relationship? Accountability. Tell me about a time you were wrong in a relationship. Influence. Who do you listen to for advice? What podcasts or creators shape your thinking? Conflict. How do you handle disagreements? Integrity. Do you think the way someone treats strangers matters? Those kinds of questions reveal how someone thinks, not just what they say they want. Most relationship content online focuses on dating tactics, manipulation, strategies, gender wars. Very little focuses on evaluating character before commitment. Choose people with good character, not just status, money, or charm. Try a healthier philosophy. Poor character exists in both genders. After a while, scrolling through social media can make it feel like everything is performance, strategy, or manipulation instead of real human connection. A lot of people are starting to feel that fatigue. People want something genuine again. The tricky thing about social media is that it rewards the loudest and most extreme voices, not necessarily the wisest ones. Influencers built large audiences partly because their messages are bold and polarizing. That doesn't automatically mean everything they say is wrong, but it does mean the content is designed to grab attention and loyalty, not always to build balanced understanding. Character is actually something many philosophers, faith traditions, and psychologists have focused on long before social media existed. Character shows up in things like integrity. Do someone's actions match their words? Empathy. Do they care about other people's humanity? Accountability. Can they admit when they're wrong? Influence. Who shapes their thinking and worldview? Asking who someone follows or listens to online, that can reveal a lot. Not because following someone automatically makes a person bad, but because it shows the ideas that are shaping their mindset. For example, someone who constantly consumes content about revenge, manipulation, using people, gender hostility, may slowly start to normalize those attitudes. On the other hand, people who follow voices about growth, responsibility, faith, psychology, or healthy relationships often develop a very different perspective. Character questions. Who do you admire most and why? What kind of content do you consume daily? Do you believe relationships should be mutual or strategic? What does loyalty mean to you? How do you treat someone who can't benefit you? Those kinds of questions get past the surface and reveal how someone truly thinks about other human beings. A person with good character is more valuable than a person with money but no integrity. One more thing. Not every difficult or selfish person is a narcissist. True narcissistic personality disorder is a clinical diagnosis, but many people show narcissistic traits like entitlement, manipulation, or lack of empathy. Focus on patterns of behavior, not labeling people medically. Early signs of narcissistic or red flag behavior on a date. How they treat service workers. One of the fastest ways to see character, watch how they treat waiters, cashiers, bartenders, hosts. The red flags are talking down to staff, snapping fingers, or being rude, acting superior. A narcissistic personality often shows entitlement toward people they see as beneath them. The conversation balance test. Notice the ratio of talking. Questions to ask yourself. Do they ask about you? Do they interpret you? Do they redirect everything back to themselves? Common pattern, bragging about money, status, or connections. One-upping your stories. Acting like the most interesting person in the room. Healthy people show curiosity about others. The boundary test. You can learn a lot by setting a small boundary. For example, I don't drink alcohol. I'd rather not talk about that yet. Is another statement you can make. Watch the reaction. Red flags. Pushing you to change your mind. Mocking your boundary. Trying to persuade you repeatedly. People with strong narcissistic traits often believe their preferences should override yours. Date locations that reveal character quickly. A casual restaurant. This exposes patience, manners, treatment of staff, tipping behavior. You see how they act when things aren't perfect. A simple coffee date at a place like a cafe. It removes luxury distractions, status displays. Now you can see conversation skills, humility, genuine interest. A small activity date. Examples: bookstore, museum, farmer's market, park walk. This reveals curiosity, patience, ability to enjoy simple things. Some narcissistic personalities become bored if the situation doesn't revolve around them, a situation with minor inconvenience. So not something manipulative, just normal life. Example, waiting in line, slow service, parking difficulty. Watch the reaction. You'll often see anger, entitlement, blaming others. Narcissists often reveal themselves through patterns to watch, love bombing early, excessive compliments, and intense attention very quickly, talking badly about all their exes. Everyone else is crazy or the problem. Image obsession, constantly talking about appearance, status, followers, money. Lack of empathy. They minimize other people's pain or experiences. Don't rush intimacy. Observe behavior. Character is revealed through consistency, pressure, time, not words. Questions about sexual responsibility, family responsibility, and life decisions can reveal a lot about someone's value and accountability. Discernment and character fits into the conversation. The key is how the question is asked. When it's framed around responsibility and life choices instead of judgment, people are more likely to answer honestly. Why questions about sexual responsibility matter. Sexual choices can reflect things like accountability, respect for commitment, how someone handles consequences, their approach to family and partner and parenting. For example, asking someone if they have children isn't about condemning them for having children. Many great people have children from previous relationships. What you're really trying to learn is how they handle responsibility. Examples of respectful but direct questions. Family responsibility. Do you have children? Are you involved in their lives? What kind of relationship do you have with their other parent? These questions show responsibility, maturity, ability to co-parent respectfully. Sexual responsibility. What are your views about casual sex versus committed relationships? Do you believe intimacy should happen early or after commitment? This can reveal someone's values around intimacy. Accountability questions. What did past relationships teach you about yourself? What mistakes have you learned from in relationships? Someone with healthy character can usually own their past without blaming everyone else. Red flags and responses. Sometimes the way someone answers matters more than the answer itself. Things to watch for. Blaming all ex-partners. Speaking negatively about their own children or responsibilities. Avoiding the question entirely. Acting offended by reasonable questions. Healthy people understand that dating involves getting to know each other's lives and decisions. Character is revealed through responsibility. Look at how someone handled children, finances, past relationships, mistakes. Those things often tell you more about someone than charm or attraction. Because someone can appear successful or attractive, but still show poor life discipline. When impulse leads and reflection comes later, discernment gets weaker. Whether someone frames that spiritually, morally, or psychologically, the basic idea is similar. From a faith perspective, what you're describing is the tension between desire and discernment, letting immediate wants guide decisions instead of wisdom and patience. Many religious traditions talk about that struggle, but even outside religion, psychologists would say something similar. When strong emotions, attraction, or physical intimacy happen quickly, the brain releases bonding chemicals like oxytocin and dopamine that can make people overlook warning signs. So the pattern that you may notice would make sense in the hookup culture, because hookup culture tends to create attachment before evaluation, blur judgment through emotional or physical bonding, make people rationalize red flags later. But discernment requires observation, patience, boundaries, clarity about values. Those two approaches often pull in opposite directions. Many people, often those who don't talk about God, still talk about gut feelings or intuition. But intuition works best when someone is calm and observant. When someone is caught up in excitement, attraction, or validation, that internal warning system can get quieter. Desire can drown out discernment. Discernment requires distance. Attachment reduces clarity. I promote guidance about awareness and character, not condemnation. Slow down long enough to see who a person really is before your heart, body, or future becomes tied to them. Being more aware and discerning about who you allow into your life usually protects your nervous system, not harms it. What tends to be detrimental is the opposite. Letting people into your life who bring chaos, manipulation, stress, or instability. When someone is constantly dealing with drama, disrespect, or emotional manipulation, their body can stay in a chronic stress response. Over time, that can affect the nervous system and contribute to things like anxiety, emotional exhaustion, and hypervigilance. Psychologists often connect this to things like prolonged stress and even conditions such as post-traumatic stress disorder when exposure to harmful behavior is repeated or severe. Discernment protects the nervous system. When people choose carefully who they allow close to them, they often experience more emotional safety, less chronic stress, healthier relationships, clearer thinking, and intuition. But when people repeatedly allow unhealthy personalities into their lives, the body can stay in fight or flight mode. Who you allow into your life affects your mind and body. Discernment isn't just about protecting your heart. It protects your peace and your nervous system. Because relationships don't only affect emotions, they affect sleep, stress, hormones, and overall well-being.